All right, so we just got through reading 2 more chapters, and now we're going to see what happened. So the fresco started melting, and he got so upset he just left. So Jack and Annie ran after him, and now we're at chapter 6, called Thousands of Ideas, chapter 6. A low fire burned in the hearth. Sunlight slanted across the warm room. Jack caught his breath as he looked around Leonardo's studio. There were mirrors, wooden trunks, globes, paint pots, and brushes. Sketches, paintings, and handmade maps were all over the walls. There were stacks of old books, half-built furniture, piled-up papers, theater masks, pieces of costumes, and musical instruments. "Oh, man," murmured Jack. "I love this room." "Me too," said Annie. "Please sit at my table. Let me get you something to eat," said Leonardo. He pushed a bunch of things to the side of a long wooden table and pulled up 2 chairs. "Thanks," said Jack. He and Annie sat down. Leonardo took the cheese and bread from the basket by the door and gave some to Jack and Annie. The cheese was real dry, but tasted good. And the bread was really delicious. Hard and crackly on the outside, but soft and chewy on the inside. I wonder how they make it like this," Jack thought. "So why do you want to leave Florence, Leonardo?" Annie asked, her mouth full. "Because I will no longer be respected here," said Leonardo. "Last week the council told me I must finish my fresco soon. And now I will not finish it at all. Just recently Michelangelo accused me of never finishing anything." "Michelangelo? The great artist?" said Jack. Oh. Leonardo snorted. "You think Michelangelo is a great artist? Have you seen his statues? Those men with their big muscles, they look like sacks of walnuts." Jack and Annie laughed. Leonardo tried to hide a small smile as he looked at them. "In truth, Michelangelo is a great artist," he said. "Still, he should not accuse me of never finishing anything, even if it is true." "Why don't you finish things?" asked Annie. "Well, I shall not finish my battle scene now because I experimented with my paint," said Leonardo. "I am experimenting all the time, and often my experiments lead nowhere." "So is that your main problem?" asked Annie. "One of them," said Leonardo, sighing. "The other is that there are too many things I want to do, and there's never enough time." "Well, what else do you want to do?" asked Jack. "Oh, I have 1,000 of ideas," said Leonardo. He put down his bread and cheese and crossed to a wooden trunk. In the corner of his studio, he raised the lid of the trunk and stared for a moment at its contents. Leonardo turned back to Jack and Annie. His eyes were bright again. Whatever was in the trunk had made him happier. "Come look," he said. Jack and Annie walked over to the trunk and peered inside. It held dozens and dozens of plain black books, large ones and small ones. "Notebooks," said Leonardo. "I have filled over 100 of them with my ideas." "Oh," said Jack, his eyes wide. "Jack keeps notebooks too," said Annie. "Do you mind if we look at them?" asked Jack. "No, not at all," said Leonardo. Jack and Annie started picking up the notebooks and turning the pages. The pages were crammed with doodles and writings. They showed sketches of people's faces, animal heads, flowers, trees, rivers, mountains, the sun, and the moon. One notebook was filled with drawings of horses. Another had sketches of bridges and buildings. Another had drawings of birds and machines. Many of the drawings in the notebooks had labels written in a strange language. "You cannot read my notes, can you?" said Leonardo. "Hold them to a mirror," said Leonardo. Jack and Annie stood in front of a wall mirror. Okay, let me show you the picture. So there's Leonardo in his home. And there's Jack and Annie, and they're looking at the book. See the models and stuff up there in his room? But they're looking at the book and look real close at the mirror. Can you see the drawings? Each held up a notebook and looked at its reflection in the mirror. "Oh, I get it," said Jack. He could read the words now. Leonardo had written everything backward, from right to left across the page. So the word bird was written as B-R-I-D, which actually D-R-I-B. And the word wind was written as D-N-I-W. Why do you write this way? Asked Annie. People think I'm trying to keep my ideas a secret, said Leonardo, but in truth, I am left-handed, and when I write normally from left to right, I smear ink across the page. One day I realized that if I wrote backward, I would not be so messy. He laughed and sat down at the table. As he took a bite of bread, he seemed happy. He seemed his happy self again. Well, what do you write in those notebooks? Said Jack. Oh, I've written down thousands of ideas, said Leonardo. For example, he opened the notebook and read, fossils of tiny sea creatures have been found in the mountains of Italy. It is my belief that ocean water once covered the mountains millions of years ago. Your belief is right, said Jack. Leonardo looked at Jack with surprise. You seem so certain, he said. Well, I know from science books that the oceans once covered many mountains of the earth, and that's why you can find sea fossils there, said Jack. We read lots of books, said Annie. Indeed, said Leonardo. Then he picked up another notebook and read, if a wolf stares at you, your voice will become hoarse. That's not true, said Annie. It is not, said Leonardo. Well, think about it, said Annie. How could an animal make a person hoarse, and why would they want to? Leonardo nodded. Yes, I think I agree with you, he said. He cleared his throat. Then he read another idea. A spider hatches its eggs by staring at them. No, said Jack and Annie together. No, said Leonardo. Trust us, said Jack, smiling. This is really fun, he thought, knowing more than a great genius. Scientists have discovered a lot since Leonardo's time. All right, I don't know why, but I shall trust you, said Leonardo. He turned some pages and read, the moon may be bright because it is made out of rippling water. Jack shook his head. Actually, it's made out of rocks, he said. It's bright because it reflects the light of the sun. Jack knew lots of facts about the moon. And did you know there's no wind on the moon? Said Annie. So someday when people walk there, their footprints will last forever. Leonardo grinned. Wonderful, he said. I fear you are both speaking nonsense, but I like your original thinking. He turned the page and read another entry. There must be a way to see a natural force, such as steam or wind, to help people do their task in less time, with less work. That's a great idea, said Jack. Maybe someday steam engines could run ships, or maybe steam could help run a train. A train? Said Leonardo. Yes, a train, said Annie. A train is this thing we've imagined. It's like wagons connected to each other, said Jack, and they run over tracks that go across the land. Interesting, said Leonardo. He closed his eyes as if trying to imagine it. And then there are planes, said Annie. We've imagined these things called planes. Yeah, said Jack. They have wings and they fly you through the air. Like birds, said Annie. Leonardo sat up very straight. You imagine a flying thing is possible? Such a flying thing is possible? He asked. We're positive, said Jack. Leonardo leapt to his feet. You have been sent to me as a sign, he said. A sign of what? Said Annie. Leonardo's eyes were gleaming. I too believe humans can fly like birds, and today I shall prove it. You will? Said Jack. Yes, until now I have been fearful of testing my idea, said Leonardo. But the two of you have given me courage. What is Leonardo talking about? Jack wondered. I am sure my plan will work now, said Leonardo, and it will bring me everlasting fame. We don't really know that much about flying, Jack said. Yeah, we were just imagining, said Annie. But Leonardo had grabbed his cap and cloak. Come with me, friends. He headed out to the courtyard. Jack grabbed his bag, and he and Annie followed. Leonardo jumped into the horse cart and picked up the reins. Climb in, he said. Jack and Annie climbed into the cart and sat beside Leonardo. Today, the great bird shall rise aloft high into the sky, said Leonardo, and the universe shall be filled with wonder. Whoa. It's going to be crazy. All right, chapter 7 is called The Great Bird. Leonardo shook the reins. The white horse clopped out of the courtyard and into the street. So where are we going? Annie asked. To a steep hill just outside the city walls, said Leonardo. One day you will tell people that you were with me on this historic Monday. You saw the mad genius, Leonardo da Vinci, and his great bird. Cool, but can you tell us exactly what you're planning to do? Said Jack. For 25 years, I have sketched birds and bats, said Leonardo. I have studied all their movements, their gliding, their flapping, their landing, and their rising into the air. I have asked myself over and over, why can a person not fly as birds do? So years ago, I began building my great bird. Your great bird? Asked Annie. Ha ha, laughed Leonardo. Wait and see. The horse pulled the cart through the city gates, heading into the countryside. The chilly air was warmed and by bright sunlight. Leonardo tugged on the reins, and his horse turned off the main road and started up a narrow, rocky path. The cart bumped past pale green olive trees and yellow fields of wildflowers. Soon it came to the bottom of a steep hill. Leonardo pulled the reins, and his horse halted. There, can you see it? He said. My great bird. He pointed to a strange-looking structure on the top of the hill. What is it? Asked Jack. The wings are like those of a bat, only much, much larger. Large enough for a man, said Leonardo. About a month ago, on a moonlit night, my apprentices and I brought it to the top of this hill. I did not have the confidence to try it then, but now I do. Jack was confused. He knew people didn't fly airplanes until the beginning of the 1900s. Maybe you should work on this one a little longer, he said. I mean, maybe. No, today is the day. I feel it, said Leonardo. Stay here and watch. Leonardo leapt down from the cart and took long strides up the steep slope. Quick, look up Great Bird. Look up Great Bird in the Leonardo book, Annie said to Jack. Jack pulled out the research book and looked up Great Bird in the index. It's here, he said. He found the right page and read aloud. Leonardo da Vinci spent years making a flying machine that he called the Great Bird, but not until the invention of lightweight motors, nearly 400 years after Leonardo's time, when human flight be possible. It is not known whether Leonardo ever tried to fly the Great Bird. If he did, he surely crashed. Oh no, said Annie. His machine won't work. If Leonardo tries to fly off that hilltop, he'll crash. We have to stop him before he hurts himself. Annie jumped out of the cart. Jack put the book away. He left his bag in the cart and ran after her. They started up the steep hill. Leonardo, stop, shouted Annie, but Leonardo kept climbing. Human flight isn't possible yet, Jack cried. Don't try it, Leonardo, yelled Annie. Jack and Annie were only halfway up the hill when Leonardo reached the top. He began strapping himself into a harness on the Great Bird. Large handles were attached to the harness. On each side were huge cloth wings stretched over a wooden frame. Don't, shouted Jack. But Leonardo was already staggering toward the edge of the steep hill with the flying machine on his back. It was so heavy that he could hardly stand up. Leonardo, stop, cried Annie. You need a motor. But Leonardo bent his legs and lowered his body close to the ground. He grabbed the two large handles and pulled them toward his chest. The huge wings rose into the air. The Great Bird raises its wings and is pushed by the wind, shouted Leonardo. No, yelled Jack and Annie. Leonardo leapt off the side of the hill into the air. A gust of wind lifted him. As the wind held his wings aloft, he pushed and pulled on the handles. The wings moved up and down. All right, here's a picture. Let me get my hand on here the right way. You see that? So there they are on the hill trying to stop him, and here is his big great bird. But Leonardo couldn't make the wings flap fast enough. Though he pushed and pulled wildly on the handles, he soon began falling through the air until wings and wood and Leonardo all crashed to the ground. "Leonardo!" yelled Annie. Jack and Annie charged down the hill. At the bottom, Leonardo da Vinci lay in a silent heap. His twisted wings spread over the grass. Jack and Annie rushed to him. "Are you all right?" cried Annie. There was no answer. "Oh no, we've killed him," thought Jack. But then Leonardo stirred. He moved his hand. "Are you all right?" Annie asked again. Leonardo moved his other hand. He rolled over on his side and unbuckled the straps of the harness. He crawled away from the flying machine and hauled himself to a sitting position. His face was scraped and red. "Are you all right?" Annie asked once more. Leonardo looked at her. The light had gone out of his eyes. "No," he said in a quiet voice. "I am not all right." "Did you break something?" asked Annie. Leonardo stood up. He stared at the twisted and torn wings of the great bird. He sighed deeply. "Only my heart," he said. "Only my heart." Leonardo turned and limped across the grass back toward his horse and cart. Jack and Annie followed. When Leonardo got to the cart, his white horse snorted as if trying to comfort him. Leonardo pressed his head against the horse's neck. Annie stepped toward him. "Why is your heart broken, Leonardo?" she asked quietly. Leonardo looked back at the hill. "All my life, I have started projects that have come to nothing," he said. "My towers and bridges have never been built. My scientific ideas have never been proven." "But," said Annie, Leonardo went on, "for years I made drawings of an enormous horse I planned to sculpt for the Duke of Milan. But in the end, that work came to nothing too. I have finished only a few paintings. I cannot even finish my favorite one, a portrait of a lovely lady of Florence. Today my fresco in the hall of the Great Council was ruined. But always, in spite of all my failures, one thing brought me comfort." "What?" asked Jack. "I knew someday I would be the first person in the world to fly," said Leonardo. His voice quavered. "Talking with the two of you, I knew the time had finally come to test my machine." "We're sorry," said Annie. No, I had to test it sooner or later," said Leonardo. "But now that dream, too, has come to nothing. I will never achieve fame by flying. I will never fly." He hung his head and stared at the ground. "I shall go home now. I shall burn all my notebooks and all my unfinished paintings and inventions. I shall leave Florence and never return." "Oh, no," said Jack. "Wait a minute," said Annie. "You will fly." "Annie," Jack warned. Since the machine would never work, he didn't want her to give Leonardo false hope. "You are going to fly, Leonardo," said Annie, "and you're going to love it." "Annie, human flight isn't possible at this time in history," Jack whispered to Annie. "A person needs a motor. We don't have a motor." But Annie paid no attention. "Hold on, everyone," she said. "I have to get something." She climbed into the cart and reached into Jack's bag. When Annie turned back around, Jack gasped. He had forgotten all about the wand of Dianthus. All right, that's where we're going to stop. Wonder what they're going to do with the wand of Dianthus. All right, so chapter 8 will be where we pick up tomorrow. It's called Wings. I wonder, put down in the comments, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen when they use the wand of Dianthus if the title of chapter 8 is Wings? All right, it was great to read with you today, and I will see y'all tomorrow. We will pick up chapter 8 tomorrow and read a couple more chapters. All right, bye-bye.